Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. Our guest of today is Samreen, and she's the founder of Turmeric Group. Samreen, why don't you tell a little bit more about yourself and what the company is doing?
Sure, it's great to be here, Joey. I am Samreen, and I have worked with leaders for nearly 28, 29 years, actually. It's coming to that. I've worked with organizations across lots of different industries, and I tend to work on the margins of organizations, and I work at a very systemic level. I have trained in psychotherapy, organizational psychology, and neuroscience, in systemic thinking, in an approach called the theory of constraints, which helps to understand what drives and what undermines performance in human systems. Now, I've noticed something, particularly in the last 5 years, that in the world that we live in, speed, pressure, cognition that's outpacing our human bodies and our nervous system are in a very, very different set of dynamics. And I think that actually the recent AI onset is also exposing the dynamics and the speed at which these dynamics are inhabiting our world and our presence in the world. In fact, I've just come off a call with a client, and she was very grateful at the end of a year of working together, but also at the end of today's session, where she felt a bit lighter. She said, "Oh, I feel so much lighter." Well, look, I didn't do much. I said, you just took the space that we've co-created. And that's what I do. I create space for people to be, to breathe. And we'll talk, I'm sure, about a little bit about my breath work, to become more intelligent and wise in their somatic connections, but in the world of business and in the world of organizations. But I also, I guess the last thing I'll say is I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and I have two incredible kids that are probably my biggest teachers.
I love what you're saying with this client. I didn't do much, but I created a space for her in order for her to go through her own process. And I think there kind of reminds me of a very famous quote a coach once said I followed. He said, "You cannot help people. People can only help themselves. What we can do is only create a space for people so so they have the opportunity to help themselves. So we are trying to push someone through. No, we are able to give someone a space. And from this space, someone has the opportunities to step in towards what they really want to do."
Absolutely. We can only help ourselves, but, and we can help each other. Often I see my work professionally, but also as a family member or as a friend, as creating the conditions for people to help themselves. Absolutely.
Very nice. And towards the companies you are serving, do you feel in your experience, do you feel a specific kind of company benefits the most from what you are doing?
I'm learning more and more that companies, businesses, organizations, we're all made of people, right? It's humans. Although it's funny, I had a conversation just today with someone about growth mindset. The CEO of her organization has asked her to do a keynote speech around it as part of this big growth conference that they're doing. And she loves the concept. She says, I totally get that concept, but I really want to make it tangible and applicable. So we had this brilliant conversation about how the Industrial Revolution and the scientific method, that reductionist approach that us as humans have adopted through history, through the world of work, through industrialization, has enabled us to find simplicity, to make sense of the world, to help us understand more together collectively. But one of the limitations of that reductionist thinking and that maybe that industrialization has been that we've put things into parts. We break things down into parts. And so my sense, actually, what I'm learning more and more is that any human system is, it might do different things. It might sell widgets or services or be more of an intermediary. It might have different ways in which it does those various things. But ultimately, we're all people. So the work I do to create space and to help those people, whether they're leaders or teams, to use that space differently, more consciously, with more intention, is irrespective of company or industry.
And let's say, because I like what you're saying, and let's say someone, a leader of a company, and you create a space for this leader to be in his full power, in his full presence, and like actually take action from intention. What do you feel the biggest benefit for these leaders stepping into their power?
So I often witness, and it's a privilege actually, to be in that very private, intimate space where I feel I spend a lot of my efforts and attention creating safety in what I would call containment. Containment psychoanalytically is that moment when the baby leaves the womb and is no longer cocooned by that physiological safety. And now it's out in the world, and it's actually then having to rely on the connection that the baby and the mother has in that very immediate moment. So safety for me is sacrosanct. And what I would say is that the most important benefit that leaders or people that I work with achieve is to find that level of safety so that they can really experiment with who they are, with what they want to be. And I don't mean be as a role in life or a label of some sort. It's what they want to be and how they want to be in their life, in that moment, in that specific moment. And I think the benefit for me is to just take that moment and to be really conscious and I've used the word intention before, but really intentional and choiceful with it. It's easy for us to look at all the things that are happening around us, or we might, I don't know, we might see what other people have and think, oh, I want that, or I compare myself and I'm not the same and I'd like to be. But actually, a lot of this is already from within. We can really understand ourselves and our choices and what's possible by just taking that space and that safety and really exploring it with time and with love and care.
I like it. And when you're saying safety, creating a certain like sense of safety where people feel safe in their own body, safe in their own house, and because they feel safe, they feel room to actually experiment. Is that what you mean?
Wow. I mean, these are really great questions because there are so many connotations about safety. You know, if we just go back to what happened over the weekend in on Bondi Beach in Australia, the completely underestimated, unthought of, taken for granted safety is just to be able to stay alive, to have that survival ability. And you would expect that in Sydney, where it's actually reputed to be one of the safest places in the world, there would be that safety. But that wasn't the case, was it? Physically, that just wasn't the case for a group of people. So there's that definition of safety, which is absolutely true and real. And we live through the realities of society and the world, politics evolve. The other end of the spectrum is, I would say, less tangible than that kind of safety. And although it is experienced very, very differently, it is just as profound and just as true a sort of safety. And we can start getting to some of the sort of childhood dynamics that we experience, whether it's as an infant, as a young child in those formative years, where just the mere presence of someone we trust and someone who we're familiar with, a parent, whether we have that level of presence or not, forms our experience of being safe. So it spans across so many different layers and levels, I think, the concept of safety. Some of it is true survival. Some of it is very much perceived, or it may be a perception based on our experience of safety at different points in our life.
Yeah, I love how you're saying it. And the one is actually coming from your inner foundation, so to say. And the other one is more like into the world. And they're both really important because if there's into the world, there's no safety. Maybe you cannot even survive. So you can work on your inner safety,
Yeah.
but if that's not there, inner safety is not gonna keep going because you're not surviving. At the same time, like this inner safety, what you're saying, is not there. You don't have this presence to actually make a difference into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you could take it as literally as somebody who doesn't have that foundational safety that you've just described and never leaves their home because they think that actually something's going to happen, or they perceive a threat. So it's absolutely, and they're intertwined.
Yeah, and what are some of the ways how you are with Turmeric Group, how you are acquiring new customers at the moment?
Well, I think the world of business is, and I'll let me just define a little bit of the parameters. So I've worked as a consultant, as an executive coach for many years, for, as I said, as around 28, 29 years. And for parts of that time, I've worked within businesses. And for a large part of that time, I've actually worked as an entrepreneur, and I'd founded my own business and several sort of sub businesses, and I would say that the landscape has changed, and it always changes, doesn't it? I mean, it's impossible not to find change in our landscape, but I would say that it's really fundamentally changed over the last few years. I would say that for most of my career as an entrepreneur, I have actually acquired clients through relationships. It's a very relational approach that I use in the kind of coaching that I do. So it's probably one of my strengths. But over the last few years, with the onset of technology, with I would say, the diversification of across consumer and business to business, I would say. And there's very, very sort of fine lines between them at times. And I'll say a little bit more about that because more recently I've ventured out of the business to business, not ventured out because I'm still there. I've still got one foot grounded in there and I still work very much fit business to business. I'm also trying and experimenting with a bit of business to consumer business acquisition. And they're very different. They are very different to one another, but I think both of them have become very different in the current reality. I tend to experiment with marketing, different sales tactics using LinkedIn, for example, both across my business to business and my beat, actually having to do things like this, get myself out there and, really find courageous and brave ways to express my voice and amplify my voice, meet people in collaboration. Collaborations tend to be leading now to a lot of business opportunities. And I think the last thing I was going to say, and there's probably more to this, but this is sort of what I'm tuning into at the moment. I have a sort of, how would I call it, an academic background. Some people would call it academic. I've worked in an organization that had a academic part to it. So it had a business school, it had research wing, and then it had a consultancy. It's called Ashridge. And for many, many years, and I'm still affiliated with them, I'm one of their executive coaches. I was part of the original team that set up the executive coaching practice. And I would say that my interest in research and academia as well has given me possibilities and opportunities to then also collaborate or speak. Then that tends to generate a lot of business.
Very nice. So based on your experience, like you kind of have different pathways of how you actually are
Lots.
able to help those people out. And were you a fan like of Harry Potter? Did you watch Harry Potter?
Yes, of course. And I've
Right.
got 2 kids and they loved reading them as well.
Me too. I love reading those books. When I was young, I read all those books, right? And let's say you can wear the magic staff of Harry Potter for one day. Let's say this red pen in my hand now is the magic staff of Harry Potter, hypothetically speaking. And let's say I could just send it over to you, and then you have the magic. And with this magic, for one day, you can solve any problem at your business which you might be having right now at Turmeric Group. What kind of problem would you choose to solve with this magic wand of Harry Potter if you could just choose to use it for one day?
For my own business. This is for my
Yeah.
own business.
Yeah.
Do you know, I've become quite philosophical about the moments in time where things have gone really well. I've been one of these fairly lucky people where the peaks and troughs of business, as in my sales and marketing constraints, have been relatively low on the whole. I've tended to get opportunities. I've had a couple of periods when that wasn't the case, and I can talk about those. But in the last couple of years, I think I've probably had my biggest revenue earning year this year ever. It's been extraordinary, actually. And it will never go away, that scarcity abundance dance and the triggers that get provoked by the risk of not having enough. It's still there. It's always there. Now, if you were to ask me what would I use the wand for, I still don't think it would be for that. Perfect certainty. I've got a pipeline of work all the time. I think actually the moments that have really affected me has been when I haven't had the capacity and the capabilities to address the opportunities and the potential that those opportunities present me with. And often it's having good people, but not having the full talent around me that I need. I'm often a constraint because I do get a lot of opportunities and I find it then really hard to keep up with being able to serve them. And I have an overextended work ethic and I have done for many years. I'm working on that very, very strongly at the moment. Apologies, the doorbell button. But I think it's strength that I feel most vulnerable about when I don't have it.
Very nice. And I like what you're saying. It's very honest about the scarcity and abundance dance. And I think a lot of founders who are watching this podcast, they're all on the same boat. Because I'm talking to a lot of founders every day. Also, what you're saying, having this opportunity and making sure that you're able to take on those opportunities in the best way possible. And then And it also looks like you're actually dealing with it. And also just a question from you, because I think this is a very common point towards like founders watching this podcast. What kind of advice would you give to these founders who are also experiencing this kind of scarcity abundance kind of dance and keep tapping into what's most important? Because if you are actually in abundance, you're able to attract way more opportunities. But at the same time, you can have this kind of scared kind of thing on the background. What if it's not going to work out maybe in the next couple of months? How would you say to deal with this kind of mindset in the most efficient way?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. Look, I feel that no matter what our job is, no matter what we do in life, I mean, even someone who keeps a home, there is often a tension that we manage. You know, we want to be happy, we want to have a life of joy. Often that's, for many of us, it involves feeling fulfilled. And on the one hand, we need to feel a sense of security. You know, we need to be able to pay the mortgage. It's funny. Recently, I met a client, or I was running a workshop actually, and we were doing a bit of a conversation, a more personal sort of share at the beginning. And this one lady said, "We've paid off our mortgage." I mean, you should have seen the response in the room when everybody heard her say, "We've just paid off our mortgage. We have no financial." Everyone went, that sort of feeling of, oh, I really wish I was in that position. So we all have this need to feel secure, to feel that. And I think that the current socio-economic climate is heightening that more and more. We won't go into, some of the dynamics there, but what we hear about them a lot, certainly here in the UK, the economy's on its knees. It's probably one of the toughest economies since I've moved here 30 years ago. So in order to be safe and secure and have that financial ability to have choice, we sort of don't want things to change. We want to stay where we are. We want to make sure that we maintain the status quo. Yeah. Now, on the other hand, I think in order to be fulfilled and happy and joyful, we also need to feel a sense of satisfaction. And in order to feel satisfied, and I think most of us, some of us satisfaction is by pushing ourselves harder, by feeling a sense of status or reward. For some it's quite tangible. For others, it might be just a sense of, connection. But to feel satisfied, we must change things. We must rock the boat, do something different, and actually embrace uncertainty. Now, living as an entrepreneur, I think many of us have a tendency, we have more of a tolerance for not having that full security, that insurance, that, okay, I know exactly how much I'm going to make. We actually chase the satisfaction, we chase the novelty, we chase the possibilities. So it is a dynamic, and as I said, a dance that we're caught in a lot. Now, that abundance scarcity tends to be our experience of feeling and needing and striving for abundance or craving abundance versus that propensity for healthily managing ourselves in relation to scarcity is often then underpinned or rooted in our experience of safety and satisfaction in earlier periods of our lives. How much did we have, and how much access did we have to those things? Or I often work with people who are enormously successful visionary leaders. They've got a bright side, they've also got a shadow, and often it's rooted in really difficult things that may have happened to them when they were young in life.
Yeah.
And a contract was born: I am never going to be poor. I am never going to let my mother suffer without. And these are the things that drive our tendencies towards allowing and receiving abundance when it comes versus being impatient or being in that more negative, and I say it is a negative cycle of reacting against the risk and the possibility of scarcity.
Yeah.
And then there's a tolerance around that. Now, my advice, just to answer my question, sorry, it's a little bit long, but my advice is aware that we are complex systems, and we are, as human beings, we are complex systems ourselves. And therefore, these fluctuations, these peaks and troughs are going to happen. So when we're in the trough, when we're in that bottom valley, it's be really choiceful about what you're doing. Surround yourself with conversations, friends who are going to feed you and who are going to help you open up and soften your perspective. Hang out in nature, breathe, give yourself some time to meditate. You and I both share that. When you're in those abundant moments, equally, be aware that you're going to have to find ways to slow down and find this space.
Very
But
nice.
those statistical fluctuations, they're not going to go anywhere.
Very nice. So what you're saying is be compassionate towards wherever you are and be aware.
Beautiful way of putting it.
And Serene, for the people watching the podcast, thank you so much for being on here, sharing your value, sharing what's really
Pleasure.
important to you, talking about what you're serving, what makes you unique. And for the people watching the podcast right now, I'm going to make sure to put the links of Samreen and the company down in the description below, so you can easily find it. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Samreen, for being here. Thanks so much for everyone watching the podcast, and see you all in the next episode. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. And I'm so grateful to be here.
That was a podcast. How was it for you?
It was fun. Yeah, really nice. And you're very very intuitive in your questioning, and yeah, you're just so easy to talk to. So thank you.
Yeah, and it's something I'm really passionate about as well. So when it's something is, I think a podcast should always come from two ways. The one answering the questions, but if the podcast interview is not giving you any energy, it's difficult for you to keep flowing. Right?
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I've had quite a few podcast experiences, and yeah, you're very energizing, and your presence, but also I think it's mainly your presence, if I'm honest, but I think it's also the questions and the way you tie the thread. So I really appreciate it.
Very nice. So we're gonna work on those podcasts. It's gonna take a couple of weeks before they are ready. And something I want to mention is could it be relevant for you? Because you're saying like, hey, at this moment in time, like, do you feel there could be any improvement in the amount of qualified leads you are getting in for your business?
Well, it depends. So I think one of the things I explained to you was that I um, work in the business to business, and then I'm starting to work into the business to consumer sector. I've now decided I want to sort of integrate what I'm offering and actually bring it more into the business to business sector. My business to business segment, which is of my existing client base. And part of that change is bringing breathwork into the corporate sector. And it's working very well with my existing clients. But if I want to scale that, it's going to require me to do it differently. So I've recently been also creating a product that I'm going to try to sell differently using breathwork. You would love it, by the way, given our conversation. And yeah, I'm sort of at a point where I'm going to have to test getting qualified leads for that.
Okay, so
and for the work that follows it. Yeah.
So what you're saying first, before the scaling part, I have this new product. I first want to test it to see how the market responds towards that. And at the moment,
Yes.
I've kind of tested it. At that moment, it could be more interesting for you to actually look at possibilities to actually scale. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And when do you feel this testing phase? Do you feel how long this phase is going to take you?
Well, I haven't actually got it out there yet, and I'm still finishing it. I'm hoping it will be ready by the second week in January.
Okay, in the second week of
And
January.
then I'm going to have to test it a bit. But my testing is going to involve just getting it out there. I don't think I'm going to go through some sort of beta thing. I'll probably iterate. Yeah, I haven't got the time.
Yeah.
I have done that in the past, but I think nowadays with AI sort of on the onset of, I think all the pace speaks for itself at the moment.
Yeah. All right. Very nice. So that's gonna be. I'm gonna make a note of that. And what you're saying with the stuff you're doing right now, you're doing the business to business part, and you're doing the business to consumer part. And with your offer you have right now for your clients, do you feel that's something you want to scale, or you want to like completely move into the breathwork part and really make that your main focus as of next year?
I mean, all the advice that we get as entrepreneurs is make the main thing the main thing.
Yeah.
But going back to that dilemma that I shared, I'm like, I don't really want to let go of my existing business because it's quite successful. So I'm sort of in a transition period. I'm not quite sure whether the breathwork is going to become its own business. I'm actually becoming more and more convinced that it's something I want to integrate into my existing business, just because I've got such a high reputation there.
Yeah. And do you feel like with your existing business, is that something you eventually want to scale?
It depends on what we mean by scaling. It's funny, as a mother with two kids, they're teenagers, and they're sort of one is going to university in the next year or so. It's on the cards, but I don't know how quickly I would want to be able to scale it, because it would require, do you know the point I made? When you don't have the bench strength, you then have way too much work, and then you're not able to service all the work. So I'm at that cusp of, do I need to now recruit a team? I made a choice in 2011, 2012, when the kids were younger, to not do that. So yeah, it just depends. It depends on what that. I'm in a really
Yeah.
interesting moment in time right now.
So kind of in this intertwined which path you want to take on. Because if you're
Yeah.
gonna scale, there's going to be certain consequences. If you're not right, there might be something going on as well.
And Joey, you talked about meditation and breath work, but the more work I do on that myself, rather, the more if I want to do this, I want to be in control, not in control, but I want to be able to
Yeah.
conduct. I don't want to be suddenly flat out. And I do think there's a huge need in the marketplace for this somatic work in the
Yeah.
corporate workplace. So I'm taking step by step, but I do have aspirations.
Very nice. So very nice to connect with you. And we're gonna send over those clips to you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna send you an email with our website as well. And the way we actually work is actually through genuine relationship building. So what we're doing is we are like outbound, so we actually help you get a qualified pipeline. But the way we do that is actually by building those genuine relationships with people. Because spamming people with messages doesn't work at all. Right? You're damaging your own brand by doing that. And if out of 1,000 people which are responding, only one response, yes, you don't get very good leads, and the leads the people you're missing out on. Let's actually they will tell other people, do you know Turmeric Group? They are like spamming all those people, and you don't want to have that. So I will send you.
I've seen it.
Yeah, so I will send you an email with our website if you check it out. Maybe in the future, maybe in February or March. Once you feel ready, just drop us an email, and then maybe we can have a conversation from there.
Sounds great. No, that sounds good, and it's a really good time to have this conversation just before Christmas. So it'll keep my mind thinking. Yeah,
Very
perfect.
nice to connect, and I will
Thank you.
I will send you a connection request on LinkedIn as well to stay connected.
Yeah, please do. And yeah, it's been a really nice conversation. Thank you for that. And in the spirit of exchange, I will reach out earlier next year.
Likewise, and have an amazing day so far, and then we stay in touch.